Listen up. After you finish your egg hunt and get your prizes and everything, everybody comes back here. And the pastor's going to have a short promotion
Close
for
to the
us.
road too, okay? All of this, in between the roads.
All right. On your mark. Get set. Go!
They went rolling out through here, they missed about 12.
Huh? That's all we got.
11.
How many you got? How many did you get, Catherine? 13.
I found 15.
and sit down with them. Go back over and sit down with them. Yes, it is. Only on one side.
3:10.
Scoot over, I'm gonna lay him down.
Well, the lady
You pick it up.
I'm still being good.
That's what you want. Put him in your mouth.
Go on over there.
Wait a minute. I'll pick next.
Bobby,
Okay, how many did you have? You had nine.
get a prize. Come on.
Okay,
You heard that word. Tell her. You got it.
You get to pick next, Bobby.
Do you see a toy you like? You see a stuffed animal or a phone book or something?
Those are poppets. Little body poppets.
Here's a mix of that.
Okay, you get to pick next. How are you?
So your family home.
John, did you get something? Come here.
You did? Mine is a pink. You get the pink for the painting book. You put the puppet back.
John,
Nice little ball.
looks like he likes to eat Easter eggs too.
How'd you do, Tim? Tim, did you make it?
Hey.
Can we do this in a little while?
Yeah, we can do that.
Same thing as the other boy. Next year, you can get another one, and then you have one for both
Hey, listen, Jack, you're not supposed to eat those eggs. You're supposed to count them.
No wonder you lost. You eat all the winning eggs. Yeah, he lost.
He looks like he's got a toothache.
You got a red man.
Yeah, and then she blaming you.
Well, he's asleep. Is that correct?
Real involved at that.
I got it.
It's huge wrinkle right across his forehead.
Deer enough one. And then the rest, I've already built a small model. Commercial made model. Just about like swivel wheels and all follows the back line process. Something like signal.
Choir program if it wasn't for the parents' willingness to cooperate with the leaders. And so we're glad that you've come tonight. We're glad for invited guests. We hope this is not the first time you've been, but if it is, we welcome you to our church and hope you'll consider coming again and being a part of the fellowship at Palm Springs. We welcome you here tonight. We certainly do want to take a moment to recognize those who work with our children. So let me just invite you to turn to the back of your program, if you will, and you'll see the list of names of those who are involved with the children's program on Sunday nights. Jim Bland, Anna Cochran, Mary Grant, Andrea Mason, Larry Mason, Dave Phillips, Renee Shockley, and Karen Wade, who have dedicated. And what a lovely, beautiful song it is, Lord, as it tells about the redemption that you have made available in Jesus Christ. We thank you for our children and the fact that these songs can be implanted into their hearts, into their minds, that will live with them the rest of their lives. We know, Lord, that things that are done on an evening such as this bring memories, bring good experiences. So we pray that would be our experience tonight, that the things that are shared here would truly be impressed upon our hearts and minds, that would linger with us in days to come, even in times of loneliness and sadness, that we can draw upon occasions like this to bring warmth and love back to our hearts and minds. So we pray you use these children tonight in a very special way to convey a message that they have placed in their memories and in their hearts. And may they share it with boldness, may they share it with joy. We thank you for the leaders. We thank you for homes represented here, for parents. Lord, we just thank you for the many persons who have had a part in making this possible. And may your Spirit continue to minister to the needs of each one, that they may continue to give sacrificially in your kingdom service and occasions and programs such as this. Continue to bless us, O Lord, and we be careful to thank you and praise you. In the name of Jesus we pray, and for his sake, amen.
You know, I would want to share with you before we begin, as Bill has already said, I thank each parent that's here. You know, without you parents bringing your kids every week, we wouldn't have a choir program. And they have just been really faithful through this musical. The name of it is, as you can tell by our shirts, King's Kid. And it's a beautiful musical that deals with the whole child. It talks about the mental, the physical, the social, and the spiritual. You know, last Sunday, when our pastor, in his sermon, he had one of the verses that one of our songs is about. And when we came last Sunday night, I asked any of the kids, did they hear anything familiar? And some of them did, Pastor. They remembered the scripture, because the scripture was taken from Philippians, and it was think about that. Whatsoever things are pure and good and honest, to think about that. And so the musical is biblically sound, because it deals with scripture verses. It deals with what our children today have to go through in their life. The peer pressure that they deal with, getting other people to like them. But there's a theme that goes throughout this musical that is beautiful, that says, he took an ordinary child, and you'll hear that all the way through, the different ordinary children in the Bible that the Lord took, that God took, and that he used to glorify his name, because they gave their lives to him. So I hope you hear that, and that you pick up on that. We shared with the kids before we came in, and we had prayer time for each other, that tonight everything might not be perfect, and I'm sure it won't, but that's okay, because we shared, when we do, as one of the songs said, we give it our best. That's all the Lord ever requires of us. And isn't it wonderful that he can take us as ordinary people, and he can bless what we give back to him to glorify his name. The music tonight is upbeat. A lot of it is really kind of a really fast tempo, and I hope you like that. But listen to the words too. The kids have worked really hard. We shared together as leaders. We were talking. I think this is possibly one of the most difficult musicals we've done. And yet, even from the very first night, back in October, when we started with it, they just picked right up with it and went with it. We had our good nights and we had our bad nights, which you always do. But I think the Lord has put it together, and I feel it'll be a blessing to you tonight. So even as you sit there, you pray for these kids, as they're going to come in, and as we're going to begin, I'm a King's Kid.
Look at all these things. Woo, aren't they nice?
Okay, we've learned that God can... Hey, isn't it great being a king's kid?
Yeah, it sure is. Did you know the king himself was a kid at one time?
Really?
Are you sure?
How do you know that?
Remember at Christmas time we learned when he was born?
Yeah.
Well, you don't think that he grew up overnight, do you?
No. You know, I remember reading in the Bible that Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. And if Jesus grew in all those ways, I bet we're supposed to grow in all those ways too. Yeah, that must be the way God planned it.
The way that we do things is our unspecial way. No one else can say the things we say, the way we say them.
B-O-R-E-D. Bored? How can you be bored? Well, there's nothing to do.
I know a way to keep from getting bored ever.
What's that? Become an astronaut and boldly go where no man has ever gone before?
No, I mean even if you're all by yourself.
Really, how?
Well, you see that cloud over there? What's it look like to you?
I'd say it looks like it's gonna rain.
Yeah, it looks like a plain old rain cloud to me too.
Well, that's where you're wrong. I can look up at that cloud and see, oh, an elephant. See the head and the legs? And that one over there looks like a giraffe. See the long neck? And that one over there looks like an old man. A really ugly old man.
Ugly.
Now see, you just have to put your mind to work and let your imagination go. You'll never be bored again. Come on now.
Use your imagination. That's such a magical thing. Your imagination. That can make a kid a king. There's no limit to where you can go in your mind.
To Zanzibar or London, to Calcutta or Paris.
Look at the wonderful, wonderful things you can find.
Just close your eyes and see.
In your imagination. 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 Hey, it'll drive your B-O-R-E-D-O-M away. Use your imagination. That's such a magical thing. Your imagination. That can make a kid a king. There's no limit to where you can go in your mind.
Africa to India to China, anywhere.
Look at the wonderful, wonderful things you can find.
Just blink and you are there.
In your imagination. 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 Hey, it'll drive your B-O-R-E-D-O-M away.
Now I get it. That one over there looks like a horse. And that one over there looks like a bird.
That is no cloud. That is a bird.
Imagination. 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 Hey! You'll never be a worried. You'll never be a worried. You'll never be a worried again.
Boy, the mind's a powerful thing, huh? It sure is. Hey, does the Bible say anything about using our minds?
Yeah, our memory verse the other week says something like, study to show yourself approved so we can learn to divide right.
Study? That sounds too much like homework.
Yuck. I hate to say it, but I think God wants us to do our best in school. I know our parents do.
And God wants us to study the Bible, too.
Hey, remember that long Mary verse that we learned that said we ought to spend our time thinking about good things?
Think about that. Think about that. Everything that's good. Think about that.
story in the Bible that tells how Jesus wanted to feed over 5,000 people? A little boy with a couple of fish and a big imagination came up with a great idea. He said, I'll give what I have to the Lord and let him use it.
And after the crowd had dinner, there was so much food left over that the disciples had to give out doggy bags.
All because one boy, a king's kid, gave his mind, his ideas, and his imagination to the Lord. Just an ordinary child with an ordinary mind, except he gave it to the Lord. Just an ordinary day took Christ just to use this child in an extraordinary way. But God dreamed his dream of greatness in that young believer's mind, and that ordinary thought in an instant became divine. He got to feed 5,000 men plus women and children that day.
God made us this way, to think and reason this way. He made us to grow in mind and body, soul and spirit every day. God made us this way, getting wiser each day. We can grow in every way, 'cause He made us this way.
Speaking of children, I have a question.
Yes?
When Jesus was a boy, what did he do?
Yeah, like did you play ball and go to school?
Or read? Or torment the girls like I love to torment my sister?
Our Sunday school teacher said that Joseph was a carpenter and that Jesus probably played around his dad's workshop a lot.
And Joseph probably made toys from him for wood scraps.
They say that when he got old enough, Jesus learned to help Joseph in his carpenter shop.
Boy, carrying wood and sawing boards and carving things sure sounds like hard work to me.
Do you suppose he lifted weights?
Or did calisthenics?
The Bible does say that we're supposed to give our whole selves, even our bodies, to God. If that is true, we should be working at keeping ourselves in shape, physically fit. You know God expects us to give Him something good.
Temple of the Lord, the place He chose to live in, a very special house all my own. And that makes my body special, for Jesus lives inside. He's here right now and will be when I'm grown.
Yes?
Are we supposed to eat that bread that they advertise on TV that builds bodies 12 different ways?
No, it just means that God wants us to be the very best people we possibly can be in every part of our lives. Mentally, spiritually, socially, and physically.
But what if my best isn't so high? I can't run very fast and I'm not very strong.
You can always practice and practice and do the very best you can.
And allow the Lord to help us.
Yeah, He can give us just the extra strength we need when we need it most. So no matter how small a part we think we can play, we just need to be sure we give it our best. After all, didn't Jesus give His best for us?
Give it your best. Give it your best shot. If you wanna win, you gotta get it go. Every day, work on your worst spot. If you give your best, the best will give it to you. Push up, pull up, sit up, chin up, jog until you bruise your shin up. Stretch and bend and twist those muscles. Take your share of tugs and tussles. Don't be on the sidelines yet. Get up there and do some sweat. If you give it all you got, you'll be winning. Lose or not. Give it your best. Give it your best shot. If you wanna win, you gotta get in and go. Every day, and you'll be a winner. If you wanna win, you gotta get in and go. Give it your best. Give it your best. Give it your best. Give it your best shot.
You know, the Bible is full of stories about people who looked weak but who proved to be awfully strong and they gave it their best.
Yeah, because God made him into human.
Yeah, might check.
You remember David? He was just a little kid.
A king's kid.
But because he minded God and gave God his best, God gave him so much extra strength that he was able to kill a giant with a little stone in his slingshot.
Just an ordinary boy with an ordinary sling and just an ordinary aim. Just a pint-sized kid fuck a lion to himself. I'm gonna bend his little frame. Like I dreamed his dream of greatness in the young believer's soul. And one ordinary stone cleaned the giant to the bone in just one throw.
He took that sling and he slung it. God made us this way, strong and healthy this way. He made us to grow in mind and body, soul and spirit every day. God made us this way. Yes, He made us this way. We can grow in every way, 'cause He made us this way.
Okay, we've learned that God can help us grow wisdom and stature if we give him our minds,
Our imaginations. And he can help us grow in stature if we build our bodies.
and trust him for extra strength.
But what about growing with favor with God and man?
and favor with God and men. What exactly does that mean?
Well, we know that Jesus liked to be with people, and people like being around him.
He had feelings and emotions just like we do. And he learned how to deal with those feelings and emotions so he could help the people around him. Yeah, he cared about the people, and he taught us that we are supposed to treat other people the same way we like them to treat us.
He said we are to love the people around us just as much as we love ourselves.
I guess that means that we are to build good relationships.
That's what life is made of. Relationships, relationships. It's nothing to be afraid of. Relationships, relationships. It's a staying together ships in all kinds of weather ships. When you're starting out on life's big trip, you gotta know just how to row to make the boat to row and go. Takes a lot of patience, ships, relationships, relationships. It takes a lot of loving, a lot of understanding, relationships, relationships. You gotta keep your ship in ship shape, shape. 'Cause it's a shape out or ship out kind of trip. It's really a communication ship. That's relationships. That's relationships. Oh, I wouldn't want to live without it. So while I am young, I'll do something about it. I'll check my relations with all my relations and build relationships.
I don't have any problem loving the people around me, but I do worry about other people liking me. How do you get everybody like you?
It isn't always easy. In fact, sometimes it's downright tough.
Yeah, sometimes people try to get you to do things you know you're not supposed to, and they make you feel like a nerd because you won't go along.
And some kids get all bent out of shape that their parents can't afford to buy them those fancy designer clothes.
Or if you don't have the newest toys, they make you feel like they're much better than you are.
Boy, how do you handle it?
Peer pressure, peer pressure. How you gonna handle all this peer pressure? Once you got what the Joneses have, what are you gonna do when they get more? Peer pressure, peer pressure. How you gonna handle all this peer pressure? Always want more and more and more when you're trying to keep up with the rest.
I gotta get an outfit just like John's.
Peer pressure, peer pressure.
I thought it had a bigger bite than melodies or rhymes.
Peer pressure, peer pressure.
The kids at school, they all go there.
Peer pressure, peer pressure.
And I can't go. It's just not fair.
Peer pressure, peer pressure.
You'd be surprised who takes prize.
Peer pressure, peer pressure.
And all the guys are giving hugs.
Peer pressure, peer pressure.
Some kids smoke, and some kids drink.
Peer pressure, peer pressure.
Lots of kids act before they think.
being a friend, a loving friend, and still take a strong stand?
It's tough.
And how do you build relationships and at the same time stay true to the Lord?
That's tougher. Well, that's what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did. And they were under a lot of pressure from the king and a lot of their friends. And they still wouldn't eat or drink the things that they knew would be harmful to them.
And most important of all, they wouldn't bow down and worship the king's golden statue because they wanted to remain true to God.
Just three ordinary boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, were captured by a king. 3 long years inside his palace, they were trained to be his servants and to do his counseling. The king built a golden statue and told them to bow down. The furnace was awfully hot. They knew that one true God would not let them down. And you know the rest. They came out of the fiery furnace alive and well. And all their friends knew God could and did answer prayers.
God made us this way. God made us this way. He made us to grow in mind and body, soul and spirit every day. God made us this way. Yes, He made us this way. We can grow in every way. 'Cause He made us this way.
Let's see, that takes care of the mental, the physical, and the social. But we still haven't answered one question. How do we grow up in favor with God?
Jesus knew that even though being strong and smart and a good friend to people was important, none of that really mattered unless he had a good relationship with God.
One of the things we learned in Sunday school was that when Jesus was a kid, he loved to go to the temple. Once when he was 12 years old, his parents couldn't find him. They looked all over for him for 3 days. Finally, they went back to the temple searching for him, and there he was, teaching the teachers.
And when Mary and Joseph asked him why he had drifted off, he said, "Didn't you know I would be here doing my father's business?"
That reminds me of Samuel. He wanted to grow in favor with God so much that he went to the temple too early.
Just an ordinary boy, Samuel lived and worked inside the temple, helping out each day. Lying in his bed one night, he thought he heard the rabbi call his name, and he asked, "What did you say?" Rabbi had been sleeping. It was God's voice that would not go away. So Samuel answered, "I'm the servant, Lord. Just show me what to do, and I'll obey."
And Samuel knew the most important way to grow was to stay in favor with God. And Samuel knew that God did speak to his kids, when they listened.
Meshach, and Abednego, and Samuel were all just kids like each of you, but they allowed the Lord to dream His dream of greatness in them. They gave His mind, His body, His relationships, and His spirits to Him, together with their talents and gifts, and God blessed them, and He made the difference. You know, we're all just kids, no matter what our age is, and God wants to do the same for us. And if we will give Him our minds and our bodies, He wants to bless them. He'll give us talents, and He'll give us the gifts and the intellect. Now that's a lot of growing, but it's a whole lot of living.
So much to live for, so much to give. We are His children. He wants us to live, loving His kingdom, loved by the King. This is real happiness. This is why we sing. So
do this. Aren't they a blessing?
So you're supposed to charge tax on it.
You know, I get $4 on each
Yeah.
VCR.
Right. You can put that on there, but it has to be under a part because you want to charge tax on it. By what the state law says, for service literature and chemicals that you buy from Cane's, you're supposed to pay tax unless you charge the customer for it.
Yeah, we put Chem, C-H-E-M.
What does the state law
P-E-C-H.
You buy your service literature when you buy it. If you're not paying sales tax on it, you got to sell it. You can't stock it in here. So you either got to charge a customer for it somewhere, or they can come in and make you pay tax on every piece of service literature you got. If you don't do that.
So you know all about that.
But you can't keep it? You mean you're saying you can't keep it?
No, you can keep it. Nothing says you can't sell it to them and keep it. It just says you got to charge somebody for it and charge a sales tax on it.
Well, that's not what the store banner Fairway.
It's the thing. What happened was Fairway got in trouble and got audited, and they're being extra careful.
Yeah, I know of a lot of people that got audited. If you give somebody something and don't charge them sales tax, you better have a certificate on file because they're gonna get you.
Well, that's what I couldn't get from the guy at the banner though. I said, you got my tax number? I says, if I don't pay tax, the taxman says, okay, where's his tax number?
Right.
He comes
Then they come.
It's me.
Right. They come.
But that's not what the guy. He said, no, you got to pay. He's making us pay tax on chemicals, which I mean is just 2-3 cents. I don't care about that, but he's just trying to tell me something that's
telling us for resale. If you buy for resale, you don't have to pay tax on it because then you list that as a part. One chem tech charge of $4 or whatever you're charging.
So we ought to be. Our new business year starts April the 1st. Tax year ends 31st of March.
You're gonna be very close to getting this online before then.
Well, I can go back and redo it. I mean, we're not.
Yeah.
I mean, I get from on Mondays I get 10 things, and on Tuesdays I get 4 or 5, and then on Wednesdays I don't even get anything in.
Yeah, you'd be better off go back and catch it all up and start right at the beginning. Now, what you do, there's another change I'd like to make anyway before you take.
Well, the thing is, we can't come down next Sunday because can we come down the Sunday after that?
It's power of routine. But we could have bad bit cells in the RAM. We could have bad bit cells in the ROMs, which means when we go to access the actual program now, we get to that part of the ROM where we need that information. Whoops.
Which you could
remember the decoding, the GCR code, encoding and decoding, all has to come out of those ROMs.
But you could have a bad 6522 and still have their light and the motor on too, couldn't you?
Yes,
because that's
catastrophic
all
failure in the 65, right, and especially UC2. If he goes bad. He generally goes bad in 2 locations at the same time, but he does go bad.
Because I've seen that,
point
you
where
know,
he
to the
locks into
motors,
us.
a lot of the motor controls gone bad because of those interfaces on there, you know, as far as not being activated or staying on.
Yeah, well see, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that high state, active high. Comes on high, everything turns on. If all the other support, it's not even logic, it's, shall we say, support circuitry, okay, is up to par.
UB2 is a RAM?
Yes, sir. UB2 is a 2K RAM, 2016. Secure local. Commodore doesn't stock this little creature. Commodore, yes, does stock the ROMs because they are Commodore programs. 6502, I believe you can buy local also. I believe Rockwell and people like that make that. Although Moss makes them, but they don't hold the rights to it.
Okay, so the 6502 is going to go when you get a program and maybe you get to look for a file that's not there. Is it going to look at the ROM to see, okay, if the file isn't there? What I'm getting at is that the one that's going to tell you that you got an error, like a file not found, or a read error, so on and so forth?
The terms that show up on the screen, file not found or write protect in place, things like that, are part of the operating system. The 6502 is merely a workhorse in the system. there's a myth. At least I found that to be a myth when I started out in digital, that 6502 is the brains of the outfit. Untrue. 6502 is merely the workhorse of the outfit. He is the sole supporter of all data movement. He does the arithmetic functions, yes. He does have his accumulator, things of this nature. But he is also worthless in the system without the kernel, who is actually the operating ROM. So without the ROM, but yet the ROM cannot communicate direct with the system and carry out all the commands. Although he has all the brains, he's the quadriplegic of the system and requires the assistance of the processor to do it. So that's why we have the cold start vector, which brings us to a reset line on the CPU, which can also tie low. Quite often ties low. Pin 40 of the 6502 gets tied down. When he's at a low state, this tells the processor, hey, all confusion stops. Once you go out to the ROM, get the first command of your cold start vector. He gets that command. It's a fetch command. Then from there, the ROM will now take over and guide him step by step. I want you to take this information, move it to RAM, read it back, to execute, because he doesn't talk direct with the ROM either. He talks with RAM.
By using fetch, you're talking one thing it's going to look for and not anything else.
Right. Go get your cold start vector. Then from there, a series of commands will take place, which is all part of your cold start routine. Because otherwise, your processor comes up on the bus and he is totally lost. You'll see data. Without a reset line, you'll get data. Your data lines will go ape until they finally lock themselves up. Because they'll just start, the counter will just come up in any old location. Whichever location you come up in, the address counter will just shows up with that value and starts from there and just says, hey, this is great. And whatever it pulls in off the bus, just has a good old time with it. So we do require a reset. As long as that reset line's low, the processor constantly goes back for the cold start vector. Constantly. So it's caught in a loop. Yes?
Where in address does it find it? Or specifically what chip UB4? Cold start vector.
The vector should be in UB4, if I'm not mistaken. UB4's disk. Yes, because UB4 will lock you. If UB4 is bad, you generally wind up with a septum before you will UB3. UB3 will generally give you flash errors, like 3 flash error. Okay, so in other words, I do believe, I may be mistaken, but I do believe it's in UB4.
When you go to system reset and you're setting everything back to 0, and then coming out of your ROM, you have something coming out of there. Let's say it's supposed to go up a high, 0, 0, 0. Coming out of your ROM, you have a high, and then 0, 0, 1 flip, which locks up your microprocessor, which locks up your operating system.
Right.
Where would you go to find that?
How would you see it?
On the scope.
What kind of scope are you using that you can capture a bit like that?
Well,
you have a storage scope?
I have we use a Syncor 61. And what you see is when this thing is going into reset, after it resets, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pulses and then nothing. On the one that's bad, we see 1, 2, 3, 4 pulse over here.
It's kind of, without seeing your system, it sounds like it's a little iffy. First thing is you must use at least the storage scope. Second thing is you must know exactly what is taking place, what value should be on the bus at this given point in time. So remember, we're moving it within a nanosecond.
No,
yeah.
You
I think it sounded like what you came up with was a way of indicating a problem, but no, I don't see it as
I can
foolproof.
hit my reset line, I can go into the start system.
Yeah, that's good. It works for you. That's good. Whatever works for you, I'm all for it. But no, I don't agree that you have a whole 100% full foul-proof system.
I don't either, but
yeah.
It works on this.
That's what I mean. That's great. Go for it.
It's not really a Commodore, it's a
yeah. You put light bulbs in it. I don't care. Whatever works for you. You know what I'm saying? I believe in it. All things, yeah. Whatever I pick up and works, I use it. I cannot use one piece of the apparatus for diagnostic. And no one piece will work on every machine either. That's why we're technicians, because we know how to make use of what's available. That's why I don't recommend using a Logic Pro, because you get too much bogus information. That's a fact. But anywho, I did say that that line's tied low. You constantly go back to your cold start vector. And the reason why I capitalize on that, because we do have a problem. Drop it to the bottom of the page, UA1, pin 1, the input. This This is your reset line coming from the host. Whenever you reset your computer, you'll drop that line low and also reset your disk drive. So if you turn your computer off, your disk drive will reset. That's what that does. This way the disk drive is now in accordance to the computer. They're now in step with one another. Big problem is that pin 1 of UA1, one of the few that I've ever seen do this. The input actually ties low. It drops down anywhere from 0 to 2 volts, which is enough to indicate an output. When you go from UA1, you pass through UB2, UA1 again, UB1, or I'm sorry, I said UB2, I'm sorry, UB1, 7406. So it's UA1, UB1, UA1 again, UB1, and buffer through UD3. 4 inverters constitute 2 buffers. So whatever appears at pin 1 will be buffered because there's 4 inversions. As long as it's an equal amount of inversion, you always output equals input. So if the input's a high, the output's a high. The input's a low, naturally the output's a low. If that pin 1 goes bad, which it does quite often, reset line will go low because it just buffered that low state. And 2 volts is considered a low, and it'll pass it right up to the processor as an absolute low. It will come up as 0 or that whatever rise current. You might come up to a half a volt, something like that, depending on the circuit. However, it's still a low, still says constantly go back to your cold start vector. Never gets off of that routine. It's trapped there.
The UA1 is
UA1 is bad. Change him. That's notorious. He's exposed to the, he's right on the DIN. Matter of fact, that connector P2 is the DIN connector here on the back. And what better place to blow out a system? Right off the old DIN connector. Walk across the carpet, pick up the DIN connector, shove it in there. Enough static goes into the system. That's the all she wrote on the buffers.
Big note on that one. Big
Very
note.
common. Anytime you're
Big
plugging
note
in
on
from
that
the
one.
outside world.
You replaced those before?
Static is a big factor.
But I'm
and
just
that's
saying,
why
I've
we
had
buffer
one
it.
or two that was
It captures
pretty much
most
hard
of
to
it,
fix,
eventually
so
it's
you know,
just
never know.
Microprocessor
Might have
out.
been one of
No.
those problems.
No, that's why they have the buffers on the line. They're protecting the
Never
internal
heard that one
bus.
before.
I'm just going to cover quickly on that reset circuit. What actually creates a reset in this is C46 and R25. Notice he's in the middle of those 2 buffers. We use another RC timing network, but we're also using the differences between a 7406 and a 74LS14. 06 because it does not have a pull-up on its output. It's an open collector output. For 06, which is really an inverter. I better take it out of there. Making diodes now. I'm all right. Take it out. What you get more. At this point in time here, we're looking at 5 volts. We have an RC timing network. We have an open collector here, which we're using 7406. My bubble back where it belongs. Resistive or voltage drop across the resistor will be created due to the charge time of this electrolytic capacitor. In this particular instance, we're using 6.8K versus a 100, that should be a 100 microfarad capacitor. The threshold on this 74LS14 is 2 volts, 2.5 volts. So we have 2.5 volts, the threshold. We have our 0 potential. As this capacitor starts to charge, the voltage drop across here is 0. We create a ramp. Once the capacitor reaches optimum charge, we come up to 5 volts, level off. Remember I said any equal amount of inverters creates a buffer? Well, we buffered here, we buffer again, we buffer through that exclusive OR gate, and we're ready to pin 40 to the processor. So in other words, we're looking for a high state here. Our input, however, will rise from 2.5 to 5 volts. But we're passing through an inverter, so we'll get a TTL absolute low versus a TTL absolute high. We won't see the ramp anymore because of the inverter. However, this capacitor goes bad quite often. Turn the system on, your reset line instantly sits high. You don't have that brief but evident delay time where it sits low, then rises high, because this capacitor is open. So this resistor here, R25, does not have a voltage drop. That is a notorious problem. The value of this capacitor being chosen at 100 microfarads will cause the time, our reset time. So reset time equals the value of 100 microfarads versus 6.8K. So if you see some with different timing, or it doesn't seem to be the same time, it could be because somebody changed the value of this capacitor. You put 200 microfarads in there, you're going to have twice as long for it to reset. Put a 50 mic and it's only going to be half as long. So that's actually what's happening here. This output will hold low until that input reaches 2.5, or I'm sorry, stay high until that reaches 2.5, where they'll then see its low state and stay there. It will not see the rise up to 5 volts because it's already low, and it already says that, hey, there's a high in, so I output a low. That's why you lose the ramp. So from here to here would be theoretically our output signal on the processor.
Effectively, then, you could take your reset from pin 6 of P2 away, okay, and it would still reset without the reset coming from the host.
Yes, you can have an open UA1. This doesn't occur, but yes, that could be effectively out of the circuit. UA1 and UB1 can be out of the circuit.
What's the purpose of having a just having the reset there?
Well, depends on how you bring your equipment up online. Who do you turn on first is always the question. Well, this way, no matter who you turn on first, once you turn on the host says, goes out to all peripherals on the line. It says, guess what, guys? Time for a reset. So everybody just, the printers will sit there and do all their nifty little stuff, even though they just did it. So here we go again. But everything's then coordinated with the host then. No programs are waiting.
Otherwise, if there was something already, program already in this.
In process, right.
Right, and you turn your computer on and it didn't reset everything else, it would be confused.
Right, right. So the bus would wind up getting locked up when you go to do a communication with it. We're going to run out about another 20 minutes here. I'll give the cattle herd up there a chance to clear. I'll take these up and give you a Commodore wonderful lunch. If you turn that thing off, I'll tell you the truth about the food upstairs. Last class didn't make it through 2 days of eating up there.
You know, you were saying about using different tools for these things. We had one we ran every disk and possible task could be ready.
Pin 20 of your ROMs is your chip select line. If that chip select line does not go low, the chip is invalid to the circuit. It's transparent. You may as well popped it out of the socket. We have a quad address decoder UC7, and we're using some support logic, also decoding logic UC6, the 74LSOO, as well as UC5, the 74LSO4. These guys are your address decoders for your disk operating ROMs. Also, it's your chip select and your output enable for your 2K RAM package. What chip select merely does is makes the data output lines valid to the data bus via tri-state buffers. That's why if there's a catastrophic failure in a ROM, that it can actually interfere with the bus. The data lines are not supposed, the data that's contained in it is not supposed to be valid to the output. So it's a data line, so the tri-state buffers keep it in a high impedance state. However, because the address ran by, and the address is always valid to the ROM, one of those buffers goes bad, it can put that erroneous data out on a line.
Okay, you said chip select and something else.
Chip selecting. It's your output enable on the, that's the OE line.
Yeah,
On the UB2, that's your output enable, that's what that stands for. Your ROMs don't use an output enable, they just use the chip select to make them valid. Because the address is always going in, but like I said, it's the same location in that ROM may show up in another. But it's only valid at X address. If you look at A15 and A13, that's actually an address decoder network coming off of those two addresses, UC6 and UC5. You can formulate the actual address on that, which is actually A0 through Fox Fox on UB4, and it's also, and it's 800 through D Fox Fox. So yes, somebody asked me if the cold start vector is in UB4. Yes, it is, because the cold start vector generally goes up to Fox Fox. Starts off in that area. So whoever asked me that question, that is yes. 90. That's not a good line to troubleshoot off of. Last week, if you really have what looks like an industry standard puppy, even though some people don't have any, I would look at the read and write line now to see if it's floating or anything like that. But generally, I don't remember any read and write lines that were giving me a problem in my career. Let's see here. Real quick talk about communication. Back to UA1 and UB1. Not only do they handle our reset line, they also buffer us in talking to UC3. That's 6522 there. UC3, we have serial data transmission, bidirectional. If we look at UC3, where there are peripheral ports, we have our clock in, clock out, data in, data out. We go through the buffers, we come down to one common line, two common lines, one common clock, one common data. That's what our buffers, that's what our inverters are being used for. If we trace this network all the way down, we'll wind up on the same line again. What all this means, okay, below that is attention, attention in. First thing your host system does is calls attention to all devices on the bus. Anybody who's on the 6-pin serial line. How it does that is drops the attention line low. Attention, all peripheral devices don't cease their program, but they stop, listen, wait for the device number. If the host called out for device number 8, and device number 8 does not respond by toggling the data lines in said pattern as known as an attention acknowledge, the computer will then come back and say, device not present. Which A, customer changed the device number, or B, you have one of your inverters is down. You're not receiving the attention signal, or you're not communicating your data line to acknowledge the attention. So your host says device not present. Meanwhile, your system won't respond to it either.
The device numbers that changed on this PB5 and 6?
Device number is set via, yes, PB5 and 6. In 15 and 16, it's outlined in the service manual there to exactly which one should be open for device 1, etc. I'll give you four device changes. You could be communicating data, starting to load from a diskette. There's nothing wrong with
And all of a sudden, the drive says it's finished, but yet the program that got into the computer is all mumbo jumbo. Well, you just read a contract or something from one of these lawyers. That's what could happen. Your 7406 or your LS14 can go down, and your data communication or your serial clock. So your serial data pulses are going to move with accordance to the pattern, but then again also a steady data clock. It's going to come along and coordinate the actual transmission. This will happen, like I said, in a bi-direction. The computer will send the clock line as well as data, and it'll receive the clock line as well as data. The clock merely validates the data.
Coming out of UC3, what's your acknowledge output?
That is your attention acknowledge. When you call device number 8, and this is device number 8, because we didn't change any device settings, it will acknowledge on the data line. It'll go shake the data line and say, yes, I'm here. Once that occurs, the attention line is released from the host, and all the peripheral devices go back to doing what they were doing.
Hey, what pin is that? Is that 14?
Acknowledge is on pin 14, yes. It just says attention.
Okay.
But that's actually attention acknowledge.
This one says AT&T.
Yeah,
Okay,
pin
attention,
14.
it does say. Mine's right on the crease.
Okay.
And this paper has gone through the war. As you can tell, this is one of the ones I use on the phone. So these are wrinkled, taped together, written all over, and everything like that.
Okay, that is all these.
You, like I said before, you can get a file. You may also come up with a symptom as file not found. UA1 or UB1 can cause a file not found symptom. Try to go out and search and wind up in an error. Come back, and the response will be file not found. There was also a rare occurrence. I had it in 2 actual applications. One dealer found it via our conversation over the phone. Like I said, we don't know the answers to everything, but we give some suggested hints, and called me back and told me what he found, and sure enough, we were right. UB1 had failed. The disk drive can go out, format the diskette, but can't read it. Can't load a directory, can't load anything. But he gave it a format command, and it did it. Went out, stepped, walked up through all the tracks, he took it out of the disk drive, put it in another known going, and read back his format. The disk was a valid formatted diskette now. Turned out to be UB1. It could understand what the computer wanted it to do, but it could not communicate back with the computer as far as moving data back. That was a 2-time occurrence, which means it's something I would put in a crazy file. So if you ever get a symptom like that, I would look at UB1. UA1 and UB1 are notorious for failing. You're quite safe in changing them. You're not ripping a customer off by changing them because they are so sensitive to static, because that's their function, is to pick up the surge of static. And there's a good chance that you'll find a lot of crazy problems with them. If you're changing one, you may change them both. You're not really going that far off, and they're not that expensive that the customer's going to mind.
What's the quickest command you can use to format a disk?
This is the short one. That's even shorter yet.
Leave that cap on there for another
Camera
15
still on?
minutes.
Bruce, thank you for the magic markers. They don't write.
Just let it set up on the step for that, it'll be fine.
8, 8, 15, quotation, N, numeric 0, whoops, no closure quote, a colon, and this is still in the same line, but I ran out of board space. The name of the diskette, and my header name is, Jim will like this, Ducky.
So what do you hit return after that?
Comma
No.
I, I'm not done yet.
Okay,
Comma
so that's
I,
the same line.
9, closure quote, another colon, close, 8, then return.
You see your pen.
So it's open, 8, 15, quotation, N, numeric 0, colon, dot, dot, name of the diskette, comma, the ID number. I always use I9, but any two
two numeric or alpha values. Close your quotation, a colon, breaks the thought in basic, close, file number 8 is what you're doing. A colon indicates a change of thought.
If you format a disk, it's already got information on it, you're gonna wipe
You
it out,
crashed
right?
it, yes, because you changed all the pointers back to
Zero.
0. Which means the data still lives on there, it's still in the fields. You've reestablished all new headers and IDs, so you'll never be able to find it. I don't know if you can ever find it again. Probably need
Seems to me
a
I
whiz
read
in
somewhere
programming
where
to find it.
There is a way to, I think it's when you scratch. It's
When you
in-
scratch, you can bring it back,
Yeah,
yes.
there is a
You
way
can
to
bring a
change
pointer
the
back once you change it, but this time you change the ID too.
Right.
You've
Okay,
done
you-
a lot more damage.
Your I-9 is,
Just an alpha value.
yeah.
Alpha or alpha, I use alphanumeric. Any two.
alphanumerical. And, the Ducky is
Yes,
name.
it's the ID. That's the name of the diskette. That's the header name I use for it. So if you ever get a disk that says Ducky on it, you know I copied it. No, there's no other relation to why I put a D in front of Ducky. I didn't have any nasty little thoughts in my mind when I was writing that out. All right. I think we covered just about everything. I don't know if I missed anything. Anybody have any
Yeah, the
questions?
power supply.
Power supply is very simple. It's a straight transformer power supply. Now, I don't know what the AC value is. We're looking at full wave rectifiers. Oh, okay, between power supplies. Yes, we're looking at full wave rectifiers.
I got
What's my schematic?
a bridge rectifier that's leaking. I've been
Yes,
trying to
you
get
can
it
that. You
and
can also
haven't
get
been
it
able.
open up.
Yeah, I've been trying to get it and haven't had any luck on it. You know.
You'll get one that the 5 volts drops out on you.
Yeah. That's what it was doing. It was
Rectifier
dropping
will
down to
just-
3.
Right, just drops out. Next thing you know, the data shuts down and the motor starts spinning because the motor sees a low line now from the data board, from the logic control board, so it says, hey, so the motor just starts spinning because the 12 volts is still good. We've had problems with CR1 and CR3. CR3
Are
is
those
notorious.
hard to
Yeah,
get
that's the,
parts, or are they not available, or it's just that they, we've
The
been
board
trying
was
to.
stuffed in Japan.
Oh, so it's still on that paper canoe coming over.
No, not really. They're not stocking bridge rectifiers, so that I'll tell you. You should be able to get them local.
Just go ahead and put something we can get in it.
The only thing I can tell, well, I say is we recommend Texas Instruments, Sprague, Motorola, Intel. We recognize these companies. We do not recognize SK, Radio Shack, or ECG. SK, Radio Shack are seconds, and ECG, we never know who they buy from. So what you buy from ECG this year may not work next year. SKs are rejects from the RCA line.
TI?
Huh? Yeah. I always thought they were the greatest transistor to walk the face of the earth.
What?
I found out they're seconds. ECG I always knew was in the pit. Now I know why. Because one year we had power transistors that would work, then all of a sudden they wouldn't work anymore, so we upgraded the value. And lo and behold, now I know, like I said, they buy different specs. They buy different vendors, which means their specs are not always consistent, so our engineers can't do a hokey dokey on them. But TI stays the same, and Motorola.
The ECGs are NAP rejects.
No, I don't think NAP.
Nobody will tell.
That's true. NAP does make something, yeah.
Philips.
Monitor on my. Limited to space, though. Let's see. Like I said, I'm going to choose page 21, which is the 5-pin board. So I'll ask you if it's an A board or a B board. The one you're looking at right now is an A board. It's a 5-pin A board. 5-pin being a video DIN connector. A board meaning that the clock circuitry that we're about to talk about is discrete. Okay. And that's really what determines the difference between an A board and a B board. An A board has a discrete clock circuit. It's in a shield can with the VIC chip. Whereas the B board, where the shield can is located, it's missing, and the clock circuitry is reduced down to an 8701, single gate array, and it's also exposed, and you have a rigid shield over the board. A B3 board is a B board with 2 RAMs instead of 8. We have 64K by 8 data bits, or 4 data bits, excuse me, 64K by 4 data bit RAMs in there. No, we don't stock them. Yes, they are secure local. TI makes them, Motorola makes them. That is called a B3 board. No, it does not have a part number. We did not assign it one yet because it's not available to the field yet. However, it's being used in the boards. You may, at some point in time, receive one. you may be ordering B boards and wind up with a B3, only because manufacturing had some repaired boards and sent them up for the exchange program.
You're telling me then that the B board will substitute for the A?
The B, all three boards are interchangeable. The sizing may be a problem. Maybe a problem with the casework of the B3, of the C casework, which is in the back there. This, by the way, I'm sure everybody's seen it by now. This case is, actually by the coloring you can tell the shape, is the new C64C. Yes, Commodore only put a C at the end when they changed the casework. It is a B board. Yes, 100% compatible because that's what it is. The only thing that changed to the customer, and it's not a rip of any sort, it's like redesigning the chassis or the framework around a car, changing the body. They made the body a little more trimline, and some people say more comfortable to type on. That's what the C64C actually offers, a trimline setup and new coloring and everything like that to go with all the other nifty little stuff we come up with. Inside of this is called the B3 board. You'll notice when you look in the RAM area, the board layout's the same as the B board. The VIC chip is exposed. That's right, it's already in the market. You can film it all you want. We won't bring out the secret boards until you put that away. The RAMs are in their normal location, but like I said, they're reduced down to 2 packages there. Also, B board and A board, the SID chip and the PLA are reversed. Don't make the fatal mistake of reversing them around. You may put the SID where you thought it should have gone, and long and behold, it'll fit, but it doesn't belong there.
It works better than it ever did.
Yeah. But that is one unique difference between the two fabrications. The A and the B also offer different positioning on the SID and the PLA chip. This clock circuit here, right up here in the top right-hand corner here of the schematic, we're looking at U31, U30, U29, U32, Q7. And finally, boil back down to U32 and U31 again. This is called a charge pump. Actually, a charge pump. We're going to come out of our counters. U31s could be our voltage controlled oscillator. We're going to output our 14.3 megahertz signal. We're going to go to the count up pin of our friend, the 74LS193, same guy we've seen in the 1541. We're going to load him with our pre-selected values. This is really because NTSC and PAL, you notice that C and B and D have inputs from Q, and they also have the preset input. On U29, just above it, there's a jumper there that says NTSC. That's because this offers a transfer to PAL. Commodore does not support the movement of computers and peripheral devices from the United States to other countries and vice versa. They say that they had problems with the frequency changes, things like that. This is one of the only schematics we put out that we actually show you how to change the system from a PAL to a NTSC. However, official word from Commodore is, no, it is not supported. The customer comes in with a unit they bought overseas or is taken overseas. Any changes you make voids any warranties on it. So if it gets overseas or it gets here and it has a problem, it's not covered. Because they say that there's problems, something to do with when they change frequency and change the voltage levels, that the boards have exhibited other problems. Coming out on the QC output, we're going to go through our D flip-flop. We're going to time that latch off, that clock off, or that D flip-flop. We're going to run it with U29 there. We're going to input at 2.045 megahertz. That is a divide by 2, the way it's set up, because Q0's feeding back to D. Q output will now be 1.022 megahertz. That 1 megahertz signal will input the pin 1 of U32 at MC4040. That's your phase detector, pin 1. Pin 3 is accepting the phase 0 clock, which is also 1.02 megahertz. This clock comes from the VIC chip, and it's going to take a comparison on it. We'll watch for any changes. Then once we go through that phase detector, we'll operate the charge pump. Output on pin 5 and 10, which is tied together. And we'll drive emitter follower, Q7. Coming off the base of Q7, come off the base and you rise up, there's a capacitor, C85, 0.47 microfarad, just above the transistor. Notorious failure. He causes all kind of problems. A lot of times he can cause an enlarged picture, horizontal frequency off, anything that's strange. Some repair centers have told me that literally cracks, that they find it broken. A lot of times it's just a matter of replacement. Any kind of crazy clock problems, replace him. I had one who was shorting out the emitter and base of the transistor and has said he had a circuit running properly. That's good. Now just change C85 and you'll be back on your way again, because he was actually deleting the function of the circuit. The emitter follower is merely a one-to-one amplifier, or coupler, more or less, with a high impedance output. It's mostly used for high impedance matching, is all it theoretically does, but that capacitor offers feedback from the output of U32 pin 8. That buffer there, you're feeding back to the base. That's why that capacitor can give you so much problem there. There has been a variety of problems, I understand, from manufacturing with the U31 and U30, so I would check the frequency on those counters there. Best thing to use here is an oscilloscope or a frequency counter. Look for accuracy on the dot clock and the color clock. Dot clock is going to come out of pin 8, we're going to loop down to U31, frequency count input. And we're going to output on pin 7, and that's going to give us our 8.1818 megahertz dot clock. Okay, also our color clock, the guy we started off with, the backup here coming out of U31, pin 10, back up to the top of the page. FB16, that's a ferrite bead, by the way. In case anybody doesn't know, a ferrite bead is a powdered iron core with a piece of heavy gauge wire placed through the center of it. And it's epoxied in place. It's for capturing stray frequencies. When you pass a frequency through a powdered iron core, it changes the resonance of the frequency. It affects the frequency is what it does. So this is uses a filter, an inductive filter. That's what a ferrite bead is. Somebody asked me if a ferrite bead can go bad. I've yet to see one go bad because it's a piece of hard wire that's merely looped through and has this powdered iron wrapped around it. So no, I've never seen a ferrite bead open up. So you do want to look at that 14.318 megahertz for accuracy, and also look at your 8.1818 for accuracy on strange problems. The other one is the control, R27. Remember I said it's a voltage controlled input on that U31, voltage controlled oscillator? Well, pin 1 goes out to a variable pot, R27. That pot can do one of two things to you. If he's just slightly off adjustment, he can kill your color, whereas your data works all right, your diagnostic says everything's hokey dokey, but no color. Just tweak them. Give a little twist to the left or to the right without taking your fingers off the diddle stick. Also, he can cause what's called your horizontal frequency to go off. It's like the horizontal hold on the television going out. Merely creates what I call diagonal lines. Now, it depends on how far off it goes. Will the lines stay diagonal or if they turn straight on the screen? But it's the same effect that you normally see on a television that's out of horizontal hold. So try tweaking that control there.
Is U31 a count up chip?
U31 is a voltage controlled oscillator. That's a VCO, voltage controlled oscillator. U30 is a a set to a count up position. Yes, we're using the count up pin. Your carries is sent back to your load, so that the counter, once it reaches 111, goes back, outputs a low signal, activates your load to go back and look at A, B, C, and D again, which will start your counter at the value prescribed by your preset circuitry. Which means if you're in NTSC or PAL. So whatever the value was that we put in
Where's
there, and
that
I
pot
load
at?
I'm ignorant to what that exact value is. If I sit here and look at it long enough, I can tell you in about 2 minutes, but I don't think it's really that necessary. But whatever the value of A, B, and C, D is what you're going to start your counter and then run it off.
Okay, lower 31 is also VCO.
Right, because 31 is a dual VCO in one package. That's a 74 LS 629. Point of interest is anybody who gets, I think we said this in the beginning, is I recommend using a TTL data book and CMOS data books when you're troubleshooting digital. I always keep a book on hand because I can't remember every darn counter that was ever made. So what I do is just look up the number. I keep a TTL book right on my desk, so when I'm talking on the phone and I can't remember exactly what the package number may be, okay, I can look it back up again to tell if it's multiplexer, counter, count up, count down. Plus it also gives you timing diagrams, things like that. It tells you what the values going into it should be and what its capabilities are. So you can use these things in a variety of fashions. Counters are very interesting. That pretty much sums up the clock circuit. Like I said, phase 0 is coming up from the VIC chip. Also, it's going into your 6510, your CPU. Your 6510 is also outputting on pin 39 your phase 2 clock. So it's extracting from the phase 1, outputting a phase 2 clock.
Isn't that the area, I think I spoke with you on the phone once about whether 9 volts could cause a problem in this area? If you had, like, the SID chip was loading down something?
Okay.
I remember you mentioned something about the dot clock.
Yes, the can voltage. You'll also notice, it's a good point, if you look off of these counters here, notice on pin 14, pin 15, I'm just looking at the VCC inputs, notice it just says plus VC. It doesn't say 5 volts. So if you drop down to the bottom of the page here, that's actually your can potential. Actually, I'm sorry, not to the bottom here, you have to come right here to top of the page. Sorry about that. You'll notice that there's a ferrite bead and an inductor L2 up here in the corner. Notice it says plus VC, but the input is actually can 5 volts.
Why did they
Plus
call it
5, that's that separate potential that's rectified off the 9 volt unregulated line from the power supply. So we're using 2 separate 5 volt sources to operate the 8-pin board. And we'll go back to what you said about that 9 volt potential because there's some interesting problems that occur with that. So there are 2 different potentials. So when you're checking this clock, you might want to look to make sure you have your DC levels to operate the circuit to begin with. But you may have part of your TTL circuits up and not the other. That's also an explanation of why when your power supply goes bad, it blows out the RAMs but doesn't blow out your clock circuits. And we will talk about the RAMs and their sensitivity. 6510. 6500 series microprocessor, 8-bit data bus, same as 6502. Offers some peripheral lines, really a major difference. Reset, same thing. Pin 40 is the reset line. Active low tells your CPU. Go out to your cold start vector. From there it goes right to the kernel ROM. Kernel ROM's on the second page there, and he's U4. Kernel ROM's big time failure. Notice the kernel's address location. These locations, by the way, are taken from address decoding. Same thing, I give you the addresses from the 1541, that's how they derive these addresses here, but they do it through the PLA, so the actual decoder or address decoder network isn't in plain view, so you can't just calculate it. But they've already done it for us. It's an E1000 to FF. The kernel has all your cold start routines and your operating routines for the system to come up. The kernel's down, the system doesn't come up, the screen will probably come up blank. Majority of the problem with the C64 is no video. I get numerous calls and say, gee, I seem to have this common problem. I'll say, what's that, naturally? And I'll say, no video. Seems to be a common failure. Well, it will be. The 64 is a closed loop system. It's a simplified form of life, which can execute a lot of major programs. It's a powerful machine, but it's cost effective, so it's a closed loop. So one part of the machines depend on the other. A lot of times your diagnostic won't come up because of that. Your diagnostic, the wraparound diagnostic, or what I call the octopus, requires the kernel to come up for it to be valid. The kernel must bring up the system before the diagnostic works. Don't be afraid to try the diagnostic, even though you have no video. There's chances that the kernel may be far enough in advance that you can get the diagnostic at least up and running.
What do you mean by no video? No box? Just a
video? Nothing. Blank screen. Same thing you're looking at right now.
blank screen, you get a raster.
Well, raster is generated from a monitor.
From the monitor.
Exactly.
Nothing whatsoever.
Right. No video information, no luminance information or chrominance information generated by the VIC chip. And we'll get into the VIC chip, and I'll talk a little more about what you will see there. And
you can get the box with no video.
No. The box is video.
Okay.
Like say
the frame. You're talking about the framing in the field.
Okay.
Right. They are part of the routine.
You know how, like, if you don't have 9 volts and you do have 9 volts, the difference of the screen would appear. You have either a raster or just like a cream, like a smooth type screen, and it'll clear the raster off. You know what I'm saying? Just take the 9 volts off a system, and you'll have like a fuzzy type screen. You know, you won't have any. When you switch it on, it won't be any change in the picture. Whereas if you turn it on, it's still no video, but it'll put like a smooth shade on the screen and take that raster away. But you won't have the border on it.
Yeah. Because if you take the 9 volts away, you took away the clock circuit,
Yeah,
which means that your data can't be valid.
Because sometimes it'll come up like a gray type screen, you know, just solid
Because
gray.
you gotta watch the monitor too. Now, in light of your theories, I've been away from it too long. It escapes me right now what the symptom is, but some monitors are set to the point where they will illuminate a raster. Mm-hmm. Even when you're fixing a monitor, you're talking raster and video. If you can't get a raster, you'll never get video. But you can't get video.
Well, that's primarily using the RF output, not using the monitor when you're using like a television.
No, the monitor doesn't have RF.
No, what I'm saying is on the back of the computer you have an RF connection for using the television. And like when you...
Oh, this is not what you're talking about?
Yeah, this is in the monitor, just like a television. When you
turn the television, not always socketed, naturally. Below him, you notice your chip select line. We talked about it earlier. It comes from U17, your PLA. PLA is notorious for failing. U17, yes. He's MSI.
Your chip select is generated in U17?
Yes. U17 is your address decoding. We use address decoding at Commodore here. So we take the address bus off the CPU, we decode it, and that tells us which line is going to be selected. That's how come we can use address locations like E to F. One way of getting around this, there is a game cartridge out called Jupiter Lander. Jupiter Lander and Radar Rat Race are the 2 cartridges I know of that are E1000 cartridges. They load into location E1000. There's a hidden RAM area underneath all ROM chips. Okay? Right now the system looks at E1000 for the kernel. This cartridge has a select line which will come in through the PLA chip and go after that hidden RAM. So in other words, the chip select line becomes invalid, and we now select the cartridge as E1000, and internal to that program is your power routines. You can power the machine up with this Jupiter Lander. Now, this is the greatest thing that ever came about since, what do they call it, what is something silly? I have to get the old guy down here to find out what that statement was since, I don't know, swinging doors, I guess. He keeps telling me there every day, I forgot it now. Oh well. Can't be cream cheese. But what this does is it takes over the kernel routines. You can plug this Jupiter Lander or Radar Rat Race in, and if the system comes up with no problems, kernel's down. We are working on actually Bruce is working on this diagnostic that will take over this E1000 location, because Jupiter Lander bombed as a game. You can hardly find it anywhere. I know we don't have it here that you can buy it. I can't even find mine. Somebody found mine and snitched it.
Isn't that Radar Rat Race, that cartridge for the VIC-20, would the chip be the same in the VIC-20 cartridge? Or?
No, VIC-20 is a whole different entity.
I just was wondering if you could take the chip out of that cartridge and
it's
put it in
different routines. Completely different. Remember, it's taken over the kernel routines, so it's all different locations, things of this nature.
What does it do? It knocks out the chip select?
Right, it knocks out the chip select line to going to the kernel. It goes right to the
Race,
cartridge. The cartridge has hardware select lines. Okay, that they close on it. There's beads on it. A very good book on this is the 64 Programmer's Reference Guide. It's put out by Sam's. That talks all about chip select, what have you, out of the cartridge. Because you just changed the chip select line now, it doesn't make that cartridge an E1000. It has to have the cold start vector in there. It has to be able to take over the processor and say, hey, this is what you're going to do. These two cartridges I know of do have this ability. There may be others, but they're the only two I'm aware of right now. Most cartridges loaded 8,000, which is in the basic area.
I have a cartridge that's called Simon's Basic. It's an extended basic. It plugs into the game port, the same as Jupiter Lander modem.
Right.
Now, does that work basically the same way, or are you familiar with that?
Not familiar with it, but you'd have to find out, and the fastest way to find out is just pull the kernel out, plug it in, if the system comes up, that's an E1000.
It's just an extended basic, that's all.
Yeah, it may not take over then. It has to have an operating routine. Jupiter Lander has an operating routine as well as Radar Rat Race. So when you plug that in, it takes over the internal operating system. That's what makes it unique. Besides that, the ROM that they used in there has a strange ability to pull up on the down RAMs. When we talk about the RAMs, I'll go back to that again. Mostly when your RAM chips go down, they generally pull down on the data lines. Well, this has an ability to bring them back up to a level where you can actually get information on the screen and use the ASCII code. You need with three or four samples, okay, of the ASCII conversion. In other words, if you've got an A and you want it a B, you take those ASCII codes and you can actually find out which data bit went down.
So it uses its own vocabulary as well as regular basic.
Yeah, I might take over the basic ROM to start with, probably. Might try it though. Maybe it might have its own kernel routine. That's a good possibility. Jupiter Lander and Radar Rat Race don't require a basic interpreter because they're machine language programs, so you do not need U3. You also don't need U4 because we already know it took over the kernel, and it has its own character set, so you don't need U5. You could pull all three of those chips out of the circuit, and it'll still work. This game will come up and run with no problem.
So if you plug that in, how's that going to isolate your...
You had a down screen, no video. You plugged in Jupiter Lander, long and behold, the game started running, everything looks hokey dokey. There's your next choice. Generally, it's the kernel ROM down. But like I said, the game's a rare commodity. No promise that you'll ever find it because it bombed as a game. Yeah, we're working on, I started to say, we're working on a diagnostic right now that's going to do something similar to this, but it's not going to require any RAM. It's going to work with the VIC registers. Right now it's in the testing stage and not even worthwhile bringing down because I don't know if it'll make it or not. But so far it's going up and down every time I watch the guy test with it. He either has a big smile on his face or says this is absolutely insane and throws his pen down. So. But it looks like a good idea so far, and right now, like I said, it's in the preliminary stages. If it goes off, it'll be out within the next couple months.
When you plug in the cartridge, isn't there something that tells it that there's a cartridge in it?
Yes, hardware.
Okay, what if
and then you read from, you're way ahead of me, that's when we talk about the PLA. Matter of fact, we could drop down to the PLA, being we're already there. Okay, looking at U17, we have our ROM high, ROM low. And you also notice on the input side of the chip,
Pin 22.
okay, we have our game and external ROM lines. They're all going out here to the 40-pin cartridge connector. They're hardware settings.
Could we put a 2364 in a cartridge and plug it in?
External kernel? I never tried it. I don't know if it would work or not.
Take that upstairs to that guy.
I don't know, it's
No, I mean,
an interesting point.
that would disable U4, right? Because you plugged in the.
Being interesting if it would take it over. I don't know if it could or not though. As part of the location, I'm game. I'll try anything once. If you burn up your machine, no, I don't know nothing about it. But that is a good point. Such as something we. I'll have to give it a try one of these days. You're talking to me on the phone and you hear a oops, here. You know, I was trying at the time. I did blow up a monitor in front of the class out in LA though. Blew out the picture tube after telling them to make sure that they ground out the coating around the picture tube. Not only 5 minutes after I told them not to forget to plug in the connector, I forgot to plug it in. Wiped out the tube right there in front of everybody, so oh well. Prove my point. Don't leave it off.
I know a guy that did it on the ice cream.
So you didn't pay for it.
No, this guy says, don't try to force this picture to crack. See, I told you, $900.
Anywho, moving right along. Also, we're going to look at U15, guy who gets overlooked once in a while. U15 sitting right up to the side here. I'm still working with the PLA now. He's a 74LS 139 dual 2-bit address decoder. Your I/O line from the PLA is going to come out, and he's going to select your VIC chip, SID chip in color. He's also going to drop down and select the second half of U15 on your enable line. He's going to do your, that says CIA1 and CIA2, that's your 6526s. CIA1 is U1, CIA2 is U2. And you're also going to come back down to IO1 and IO2, which is also an external operation off the cartridge port. So these are lines that go out to the external cartridge there. Your ROM high and ROM low, I'm looking right now on the external cartridge line. I don't see the P number on it, but it's the external of the cartridge expansion line. Look at pin 8, pin 11, right about the center. You see ROM low and ROM high. That's where you pick up your 8000 to 9 Fox Fox and your E1000 FFF. That's where you determine whether you're using an 8000 cartridge, which is what your diagnostic is an 8000, or an E1000, which is what Jupiter Lander and Radar Rat Race are. One guy laughed hysterically when I told him you have a Radar Rat Race or Jupiter Lander, and he says, like,
Those are the worst two games,
what are you doing
too.
over there, buddy? Are you serious or something? I told you, I'll use anything I get my hands on. But these are outputs from the PLA, and we're going to read back in, like I said, from the game or external ROM line. Those two lines there will determine what's going on inside the PLA. Also, we talked about it earlier. I'll remind everybody again. I had one repair center tell me that they checked the PLA for proper operation, even though the diagnostic says everything's hokey-dokey, by using summer-winter games. If it has an intermitting load to it, he says he changes the PLA and gets up and running again. I hadn't had the opportunity myself to try it, but I'm a believer. This looks for timing deficiencies in the chip now. That's basically what things like that will find. We had a question earlier about a 6522 causing a similar symptom. Won't load just one program. Timing deficiency. These are possible failures in chips. So if you ever get back into a corner with a customer, you can always say it's a timing deficiency. Let them argue that one with you. But that is a true theory. That is a true theory, though. There are timing difficulties. I had an engineer tell me that. Yes.
Off the record,
we can't. The camera's still on.
The game that you said summer-winter game?
Summer-winter games, yes.
Is it summer or is it winter?
Winter games version? I have it winter-summer games. Yes, I have it written here. By Epics?
Yeah,
I assume it's some kind of two games? Oh, okay. Are they on one disc or are they on different discs? Oh, different ones? Oh, okay.
Two entirely different startups that one starts up rather quickly, the other one takes a little bit of time.
Okay, he just told me he uses summer-winter games. I'm not really familiar with the games themselves. I don't have any games from my own home computer.
Good excuse to get all three of them.
Yeah. That's Recommended diagnostics by Commodore. I can see it now. That's my name, Bruce Mortensen. MOR. Let's see here. We've had some problem at U15 causing port problems. Failures to select your I/O ports. And we'll head on over to the I/O ports. Let's see if we have anything else to cover on this guy. Character ROM, as you already know, it's your character set for the computer. If your character ROM is defective, or you generally won't get much of anything on the screen. I'd have to go as far as to say a no header. You get the, which we were talking about earlier, the box, which is actually the field and the border. Also, the basic ROM is notorious for that same symptom. No header, but you have the border, the colors are right, and you have the field in the center, the dark blue field with the light blue border. Basic ROM. That header is written from a basic routine.
But when you set up the kernel run, the kernel's got to tell it to go to the basic to get that information?
Exactly. Your basic select line is not going to stay low. It's only going to strobe low for a few moments, and then it's going to be gone. Depends on where your routine's caught up at again, to whether or not you're going to see that chip select. You may not catch it. If you have no video coming up, you may not see that select line hit. So a lot of these select lines are kind of difficult. Like I said, the 64 is a loop system. It's not cut and dry where you can actually follow these signals like we did in the 1541.
Okay, if you got a U5 character problem, you're gonna have problems with your header?
The header should come under that as well. I have a note upstairs I'll bring down again to make sure. I don't have any problems written here as far as the character ROM. But what he is he's the actual formula of the character. He takes an 8x8 pixel and we punch holes in them. So he's the actual storage information to what a character should look like, which areas should be removed.
And your blue field is your basic?
Blue field, no, your blue field and your border are part of the kernel routine. They're a machine language routine from the kernel. So if the border and the field don't come up, the kernel's down. That's why you don't have any screen.
The kernel, is it going to be the one that translates to the microprocessor saying, okay, here's a basic routine or a basic command, and translate it into a machine language command?
Yes. Yes. He's the brains of the outfit, or the kernel of the system. He's the old, well, the name says, I guess, I'm not telling you got it or not, but it seems to fit.
And the basic ROM is going to be for...
Right, just basic routines, basic language understandings. Whereas Jupiter Leonard can get by him because he doesn't have any basic routines in his program.
So actually the basic and the kernel are going to kind of work together.
Basic will come in when people like us are using the keyboards, we don't know anything about machine language programming. So we're going to talk to, matter of fact, if you just do a simple arithmetic problem, you're doing it in basic. Okay, you're asking it to print, you're saying the print statement, which is a basic routine, then you're saying some arithmetic functions, which are going to go up to the accumulator naturally, blah, 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 inside the 6502. But the actual response and presentation back to the screen is a basic routine now. So that has to be interpreted before, that's why it takes so long for it to happen. It's your break.
No, it's just no.
Put everybody's attention, too. Right, let's see. Let's head on up to the RAM bank before we go off the page.
On that, one more thing, on that game cartridge, you say it senses it on that game light. Is it outputting the load to it, or is it waiting for when to come back? Okay, that's an input.
See here, you have pull-ups on the, that's a
Yeah,
pull-up
all right.
package. But pin
Okay.
8 and 9, you have 2 pull-up resistors. That's because the game cartridge has hardware settings. They're actual physical pads that they close off.
So we just have to tie that low if we were going to put